The Clone Wars, in many ways, were less one big conflict than they were a collection of thousands of more local grievances flaring up once more. Some, like the conflict between the Andoan Spivarolda and the Andoan Free Colonies, began only a few decades before the Clone Wars, but some were a continuation of truly ancient grievances which had troubled the Republic many times before. The Tion cluster's animosity toward the Republic is perhaps the most notable of these conflicts, and in this video, which is part of our series on the history of the Republic, we're going to explore what led to that region becoming the heart of the CIS.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
In our last video in the series, we discussed how the Jedi Order came to be affiliated with Coruscant, and ended with the First War breakout in the Republic. But that war, the First Great Schism, was limited in scale, and the Republic was barely even involved in it. Instead, the Republic's first true war happened 500 years earlier, in around 24,000 BBY. At that time, Republic hyperspace scouts were eagerly pushing along the Polemian trade route into the Outer Rim, seeking new civilizations to trade with. There was a danger in doing so, of course. Upon joining the Republic, the Jedi of Ossus warned that pirates and bloodthirsty empires lay not far from the borders of the Republic, and actually joined the Republic mostly to help insulate it from those dangers. But this didn't deter the Republic's scouts, and soon enough, they discovered the Tionese. At the time, the Galactic Republic was still rather naive, possessing no real military aside from the small fleets maintained by some of the richer core worlds. Its scout ships were only lightly armed, and when they first made contact with the Tionese, they did so in the hopes of establishing trade with their new neighbors. The Tionese, on the other hand, were a completely different story. The Tionese were human, the descendants of a pair of ancient sleeper ship colonies that were established on Barseg and Janalis 7, 2,000 years before the Republic was even an idea. They adopted old Rakatan technology discovered on those worlds, coming up with primitive hyperdrives, war droids, and beam tubes, the ancient ancestors of the modern blaster. They quickly spread out across the Tion cluster, a large swath of space in the distant Outer Rim. They quickly splintered into a variety of warring civilizations, but they nonetheless managed to maintain a somewhat universal culture. 25,150 years before the Battle of Yavin, Tionese civilization had become dominated by three warring factions. The Livian League, ruled from Decivro, the Kingdom of Barseg, ruled from Barseg, and the Kingdom of Kron, ruled from Chandar. Around that time, the Kingdom of Kron came under the rule of the infamous pirate king Xim the Despot, who executed a series of campaigns known as the Tionese Sweeps. He conquered the Kingdom of Barseg and a massive swath of the cluster beyond it, with only the Livian League remaining independent of his rule. Xim moved the capital of his new empire to Argai and divided it into three provinces ruled by Shandar, Cadinth, and Raxus. 25,130 years before the Battle of Yavin, Xim died and was succeeded by his son Xim, who was determined to expand his father's empire. He was tremendously successful. Not only did he conquer the Livian League, but he also greatly expanded the borders of the Tionese civilization, and by 25,100 BBY, Xim's empire was the largest state in the entire galaxy. Rule of the empire was divided between Xim's throne worlds, the richest and most powerful of the Tionese worlds. Within the original borders of the Tion cluster, he chose Argai, Chandar, Cadinth, and Decivro as his seats of power, and as the empire expanded, new throne worlds were added. As Xim pushed into the region known as the Thanium Worlds, which stretched out to the Radama Void, and far Indrexu, which lay rimward of the cluster, Thanium and Yatusk joined the list of throne worlds. When he conquered the lush region known as the Kyrium Reaches, Horonom and Astigon became throne worlds as well. And Xim didn't stop there, he was always pushing the borders of his realm. Unfortunately for him, he largely chose to push them southwards. As Xim's empire reached southwards across the rim, it eventually encountered another powerful civilization, the Hutt Empire. In his arrogance, Xim saw the Hutts as ripe for the conquest and declared war, claiming Sleheron as his 9th throne world and engaging the Hutts in several battles at the planet Vontor. But Xim underestimated his wily enemies. In preparation for the 3rd Battle of Vontor, the Hutts enslaved 3 entire species, the Nyctos, Clatunians, and Vodrans, and formed them into huge armies, which they unleashed against Xim's war droids in that last fateful battle. The Hutts were victorious, and the being history would remember as Xim the Despot was captured and humiliated, dying a slave in a Hutt dungeon. Following Xim's defeat, his empire splintered, with the Hutts claiming many of their southern territories for their own and frequently raiding the rest for slaves and plunder. The Tionese splinter states, which included the Honourable Union of Decivero and Tion, the Jamanir Marches, the Kingdom of Kron, the Thanium Dominion, the Indrexu Confederation, and the Keldrath Alignment, were constantly seeking to return to their former glory and take revenge on the Hutts. But the Hutts themselves remained far from Tionese reach, and they were always sure to send sinister war fleets to mess up any Tionese civilization that got too powerful for their liking. The Hutts were still unknown to the Republic when they encountered the Tionese, but news of the contact made its way to Hutt ears. The Hutts feared the 2 human civilizations would unite against them, so in 24,500 BBY, they attacked the Kyrium Reaches, the southernmost Tionese colonies, without warning in a campaign known as the Devouring. This genocidal war saw the Kyrium Reaches utterly annihilated, stripped of all inhabitants and thoroughly plundered. When Republic scouts eventually reached the region, they named it the Ash Worlds. The Tionese were still reeling from this genocide in 24,000 BBY, and as they began to learn more about the Republic, they saw an opportunity. The Republic was wealthy and technologically advanced, with better hyperdrive technology than either the Tionese or the Hutts. Despite this, however, it didn't have a standing military, so some among the Tionese hoped to conquer it and use its technology to exact revenge on the Hutts. Decivero led this effort, getting the Honourable Union on board with the idea and then making alliances with the Kingdom of Kron, the Jamanir Marches, and the Thanium Dominion as well. They reverse-engineered Republic technology and began building new war fleets at Arkan, Jamanir, and Thanium. Somehow, the Republic didn't see war coming, even when the Jedi repeatedly warned them about it. The Senate did absolutely nothing until, in 24,000 BBY, the Tionese stormed down the Polemian trade route, first conquering Abheen and then Roche, Lentils, Tanab, and Tiran. Frantically, the Republic began cobbling together a military, but it did so much too late, and the Tionese breached the core worlds before their new warships were ready. Using devastating pressure bombs, the Tionese destroyed the shipyards of Polemia and Axim, and then proceeded to unleash their new weapons on Alsaken and Coruscant itself. Their assaults were devastating, but not crippling, and the Republic quickly prepared for a counterattack. At Corellia, Rendelia, and Humberine, vast fleets of warships were nearing completion, the first vessels to be put to use as part of the new Republic Navy. The Tionese foothold in the heart of the Republic was weak from the beginning, as their tactics were still based on those pioneered by Xim the Despot, who took inspiration primarily from his time as a pirate. As a result, the Tionese focused more on plundering than they did on actually securing territory, and so when the Republic finally executed its counterattack, the Tionese were routed and quickly pushed out of the core. Emboldened, the Republic Navy rallied at Anaxis, Axim's sister world, and began pursuing the Tionese back up the Polemian. The Tionese War lasted for 100 years, most of which was a series of back and forth campaigns between the Tion and the core. Over the course of this period, Anaxis, now the headquarters of the Republic Navy, gained a reputation as the defender of the core, as the Tionese were never again successful in getting past it and into the Republic at large. Fleets launched from Anaxis pushed the Tionese further and further up the Polemian as the Republic pulled its industrial resources to build up its new military. As both the Republic and the Tionese turned the Polemian worlds into war camps and entrenched their armies, the Senate sought out other ways to get an advantage over the Tionese. Republic merchants with contacts in Hutt vassal colonies managed to provoke the Hutt Empire into a new campaign against the Tion, which forced the Tionese to redirect some of their forces to defend their southern borders. After a lengthy debate, the Jedi Order also decided to get involved in the war, concerned that the galaxy would sink into barbarism otherwise. As the Tionese were slowly pushed back, their war effort became fanatical, for they came to believe that defeat would mean the destruction of their culture and civilization. Their tactics came to incorporate sudden raids and even suicide attacks, which in turn further radicalized the Republic military, which adopted a strategy of total war. They eventually pushed the Tionese back out into the Tion cluster, which they then invaded, using their own pressure bombs to annihilate Kadinth, Jamanir, Thanium, Chandar, and Barsik. At last, in 23,900 BBY, the Republic Navy attacked Decivero itself. Knowing they faced defeat, the Decivras offered an unconditional surrender, a surrender the Republic ignored. Seeking to send a message to the Tionese, they pressure bombed the entire planet, blasting it into a barren wasteland. In short order, the rest of the Tionese world surrendered and the Tionese War ended with a Republic victory. There was some blowback to the brutality expressed at Decivero, however. The Jedi nearly broke ties with the Republic entirely over it, and to placate them, the Senate ordered the complete dissolution of the Republic Navy, with its assets being distributed to individual worlds to maintain. Over the course of the centuries that followed the end of the Tionese War, the worlds of the Tion cluster ended up joining the Republic to seek protection from the Hutts, with only Decivero remaining bitterly independent. Over the course of the next few thousand years, the Republic continued to expand. It pushed further into the colonies, further out along the Corellian Run, and into the Inner Rim. Worlds like Deveron, Alantine 6, Aelon, Antar, Pantalomin, and Shambhala joined the Republic. The Republic made contact with other civilizations out in the void as well, making alliances with Noain and the Tilak regions. The map you're seeing now is the Republic as it was by 22,000 BBY, during the height of the expansionist era. By 20,000 BBY, much of the core, the colonies in the Inner Rim, had seen intensive exploration, and a new chapter of Republic history began, the Great Manifest period. By that point, the Tionese War were thousands of years in the past, and the Tion cluster had been completely absorbed into the Republic. But not all of the Tionese were happy about it. Anti-Republic sentiment lingered in the Tion cluster for tens of thousands of years after that initial conflict. And in the Republic's later wars, the Tion often leapt at any opportunity to secede from the Republic. The Clone Wars were one such conflict. In 24 BBY, when Count Dooku announced the formation of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, he did so on Raxus Prime in the Tion cluster, which became the first sector to secede during the subsequent Separatist crisis. So that was our look into the Tion cluster, the ancient rivals of the Republic. But as per usual, we want to know what you think. Do you want to hear more about the Tionese? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comments section below. And just before you go guys, as per usual, make sure you check out the links in the description below, including our main Geetsly's Discord server, our Geetsly's gaming network with our Gmod community being totally revamped, and the Patreon if you want to help support the channel more than you already are by watching this video. Anyways guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.